Good afternoon from Hopalong Hollow. We're inside this old house today, and we're starting out with a cup of tea because this is November, and because today's topic is very English. So today's venue is inside what would have been the parlor in this old house. This is a turn-of-the-century house, and I finally tracked down when this house was actually built. It was the year the Titanic sank in 1912. I don't know about you, but I'm always curious to see how other people decorate. And I have had a few requests by some of you asking to see some of these rooms in this house. I have done the bathroom, but that's about the only room I have recorded on video in this house. So today, I thought I would show you what my style is and how I achieve it. So the style that I'm showing you today is a style that I actually really didn't even know the name of. It's just the way that I have decorated for as long as I can remember, using a lot of rich fabrics, textiles, combinations, a juxtaposition of colors, patterns, and layer upon layer of rich color. It wasn't until recently that I realized that my style of decorating is very English. And I guess that makes sense because I have a very long English heritage. Mix that in with a little bit of Dutch and, of course, my America side. So I would call this style English married to early American. And I'm going to go through the room and just talk about a few things and how I think you can achieve this look if it's something you like. It's a very warm and cozy look. And I think that's what we're looking for. For our families, we're looking for coziness and beauty in our rooms. The number one component of doing an English style room is comfort. So that's where we're going to start. So number one being comfort. We want a really cozy and welcoming atmosphere in an English style room. And one way to do that is with ample helpings of pillows and cushions and quilts and blankets and textiles and afghans just piled on really overstuffed couches and chairs. And if you don't have overstuffed chairs, you still want some padding on your chairs. Any sitting surface should either have a pad or a pillow. So you've got a lot of cushions, a lot of pillows, a lot of places to sit. And another component that really adds a lot to your room would be soft lighting. Soft, romantic lighting. I love lamps. They're almost like sitting under a candle, because they only light one section of your room. So you might need 6 or 7 lamps in a room, but even if you have 6 or 7 lamps in a room, you're still getting that really warm and lovely and inviting ambiance that you can only get with lamps. You just cannot get it with overhead lights. Another way to bring comfort into a room and coziness into a room with this English style is by layering your rugs. So instead of laying rugs side by side, you're actually laying them on top of each other. You could lay 1 rug, 2 rugs, 3 rugs, one on top of the other, crisscrossing the pattern so that each pattern shows, and really giving it a really wonderful feel under your feet. Very, very lush and comfortable. And then, of course, you want a little bit of bare wood to show because you get that beautiful patina of your floor. And mixing that with all these different patterns, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Mixing patterns like crazy. Another way of layering would be on your windows and your window treatments. So you could do 1, 2, 3 layers of curtains and drapes all on the same window. And I guess I didn't mention color before, which I guess I should have started with color. But in this room, basically got 3 major colors, and that would be the reds, which are so warm. And I've got sort of a deep blue. And then I added this yellow, this splash of yellow, because it really needed something to brighten it up a little bit. The walls, I think I've mentioned this before, I don't like white walls. I don't like stark white walls. So these walls are more of an antique white, but they're not just white because they've been stenciled all the way up to the ceiling. And therefore, they are also decorated walls, making that very much of an American look combined with the English. That leads us to another component, and that is visually charged interiors. And how do you achieve that? By combining all kinds of beautiful, vibrant, lush, rich patterns and textures and fibers all in one room. Now, what ties these together and makes it so that it doesn't really clash? Because these really do not clash, and they don't clash because you can see that what is bringing these together and harmonizing these are the colors. So even though I've got several different patterns here, I've got florals here, I've got kind of rich tapestry red here, deep red, another botanical here on the couch. And then lo and behold, I'm using a completely different thing. I'm using an American braided rug here, early American braided rug next to a Belgian carpet. But they all go together in an absolutely lovely tapestry of color. At least I think so. Now, if you mix that with something else which is very English, a penchant for dark woods. Those dark woods really, really bring out your colors, no matter what you are using, no matter what colors you're using. If you are putting them against dark woods, you really are going to make those colors pop. So a couple of the areas in this room that have dark woods. One of my darkest pieces here is a really wonderful old American piece, and this is a walnut corner cupboard, about 1840s. Super dark wood. Painted the interior yellow just so that these things would show, otherwise they would not even show because it was so dark in there. But here we have collections, which is something else that we're going to talk about probably in part 2 of this video. So the neat thing about visually charged interiors is that you cannot take in the room in one glance. I mean, you're always seeing something different. You're always looking at another corner and you're noticing something you didn't see before. And here's a perfect example of mixing patterns, completely mixing patterns, because here we've got the plaid, and then we've got the colonial American pineapple motif, which was actually a welcome motif, very popular during the colonial times. And of course, who were colonials in America? They were British people. So these go really great together simply because I've tied the colors together. And I've done it once again over here with the lampshade. And I've done it down here. A completely different pattern, but look at this rich tapestry pattern. And then we have this floral motif, but it's picking up the reds and the different shades of gold and slight greens in the pattern on the pillow. And then I'm repeating this plaid again. So this is not as easy as it would be as if you were just decorating a room in whites and solid colors. Now this is a bit of a challenge to decorate this way, but it's fun. It's a beautiful way to learn how to design. And your room will never be boring because there's always something really intriguing or interesting to see in this room. Here's another example of picking up colors and textures and putting them together. So this transferware, the red, I'm following that red through in the room, and then using a woven runner, table runner, and then I'm picking up some blue here in this American stoneware, salt glazed stoneware lamp jug. And there's the red again with the lampshade, and there you have that lovely soft lighting. Also, little vignettes make a room very, very cozy. Books, flower pots, vases of dried flowers, and of course, tea sets. Interesting thing about the English style is that even in the smallest of rooms, you're going to pack a lot of furniture into that room. And this is a fairly small room, but there are so many places to sit in this one room. Even though the furniture is packed in, it still has a cohesiveness and it doesn't look too strange. But one thing I love to do, and I think this is something that everybody should learn to do, is you do not have to put your furniture flat up against a wall. You can catty corner things. I've catty cornered this cupboard. I've catty cornered this love seat, and behind that love seat is a table on which I'm able to put these collections of things. So you don't see the table behind it, but obviously it's there. And now, speaking of furniture in every room, let's talk about something like this chair. This is a Windsor chair, and the Windsor chair has a very interesting history. The story goes that King George II, in order to escape a rainstorm, took refuge in a peasant's cottage and was asked to sit at a very spindly chair with lots of little spindles. But the chair was very comfortable, and so he decided to have his furniture makers build him some chairs like this. The town was Windsor, in which the peasant's cottage was, and therefore this chair became called the Windsor chair. Now this is more of an American version because the Americans really refined the chair in the 1740s. And these Windsor chairs are very popular in colonial America. For example, Thomas Jefferson, Ben Franklin, George Washington, John Adams all had Windsor chairs in their homes. This one was the most standard. It's a bow-back Windsor. And once again, there's that dark wood. So I would consider this an American and an English style. And here is a fan-back Windsor. Once again, cushions and pads on all the seating areas. Another thing about the English style is that you can take all that furniture in your room and turn it into almost like separate little garden rooms. So you're compartmentalizing the room by adding separate little areas, such as this area here, where you can sit and have tea or lunch. So right here, next to the couch, is another compartmentalized area, like the little garden rooms I was talking about, with a small desk which opens up, and there are books and all sorts of things inside. This is simply an old, I don't know, I love it. I love it because it's dark red, it's got a lock on it, and then the top lifts up. I believe this is just an old school desk. That's dark, dark red oak. But what ties it together on top, the arrangements, are all needleworking items, twists, pins, needles, books, and then needlework in the process. And behind that, another grouping of pictures, very carefully arranged, all needlework. Some of them were pieces that I did. Yes, I did that in 1982. And some of them are very old, like this one's 1910 from Holland. And that one I did back in the 1980s, I think. So here, another example of densely packed pictures on the wall for that beautiful old English style. Now there's one thing for certain about this style of decorating. If you are a minimalist, you would not like this look at all. And that really is especially true when you look at the walls, because you want your walls to be covered. For example, when it comes to hanging pictures on a wall, with this style, it's not less is more, it's more is more. You want to pack those pictures on the wall. Of course, there is an art to hanging pictures, and that's something you can learn to do. If you're not familiar with hanging pictures, there's just a few basic rules to follow. First thing to know is that you do not have to have identical frames. Every single frame on this wall is different from the other one. What they have in common is that most of them are old or antique frames, but the main thing you have to keep in mind is that the subject matter inside the frame should be similar. And in this case, the first 4 pictures going up the stairs are all needlework. So here's a miniature quilt, and then we have some punch needle, more punch needle, and then a small piece of cross stitch there on the end. Now going up a stairway, there is an art to staggering those pictures up the wall and making them look balanced. It's just something you really have to practice. It could take hours. It does take hours sometimes to hang pictures. But once you've got them up and you like the arrangement, then you don't have to move them for years, except to clean the glass. And kept picking up the colors above all those pictures are 3 little antique dollhouses. So you can see already that collecting things is a huge part of the English style. Up here at the top of the steps, the frames once again are all different, but the subject matter inside the frames is Scherenschnitte, or paper cutting, as you would call it in German. And I've cut many of these myself, and I've also just collected these from other paper cutters. This large one is one of mine. And this large painted paper cutting, which is actually a print of a paper cutting, that one is mine as well. But in between, you can see the stenciling, because the stenciling goes all the way up to the very tall ceiling. Oh, that was such a scary job. I'm just glad it wasn't wallpaper. Although there is a bit of wallpaper in here too at the top of the stairs. And this is the toile, which is fading, fading, fading. It started out red, and now it's just fading to a sepia color. And I actually don't have any pictures on that wall because I want to see the wallpaper. So you can see how these pictures have been densely packed all the way down the stairway. I could use stair treads, but I'm always afraid I'm going to catch my heel and go tumbling head first down these steps, because it happened to me once, so I just don't want to do that anymore. Here by the window at the bottom of the stairs is a repeat of that pineapple motif, which is across the room also, but this time I mixed it with blue and white ticking, which is a really versatile, wonderful old fabric. I picked up the blue in there. And something else I didn't mention, as far as the stenciling goes, this pattern, I bought it years ago, and I think it was a Ralph Lauren pattern, and it was called Old Glory. And you can see why it was called Old Glory. But also, when you look at parts of this design that you can see right here. It really is very much repeated in the designs right here on this pineapple fabric. I mentioned earlier that with this style of decor, you basically are taking up every shelf and every space and every little nook and cranny, and it is never boring to look around in a room like this, because there's always something to catch your eye. And there's one thing about collections, and that's the way you arrange them. You don't want them to look like a Mod Podge mess. And really, to the untrained eye, that might be the case. You might think that this is just thrown together, but really it was very carefully planned, because we don't want it to turn into a muddle. But we do want it to have some rhyme, reason, and purpose, and it actually does. This is, I showed this collection before when I did a series on collecting teapots. But you can see how everything just sort of goes together. You know, in my garden, I love perfectly imperfect. In my house, I'm just a little more of a perfectionist. And I like things to be just so. Spinning wheels. They were old spinning wheels, and I'm a very lousy spinner. And that's just because I've not really had time to learn. But I wouldn't want to learn how to spin on these old wheels because they're pretty rickety. This one's about 200 years old. And then it's always good to have like a showpiece in your room, I think. And this is my showpiece here, which I've also shown you before. This is my thatched house for Pippity Trimble that I built. It's really, I don't have an huge antique dollhouse, an old English dollhouse, but I certainly do have this. This building is called Trimble Manor for my little mouse, Pippity Trimble. And usually there's a chair here, so this would be another separate area where you could come and you could open up this drawer, and I could actually work on some of the little items that I'm trying to make for this house. I have little kits inside the drawer and wallpapers and all sorts of things. I just pull this out from the wall and I can get into the back of the dollhouse. I should say the mouse house. This cupboard to show you that although these 3 shelves of collections look like they don't have anything to do with one another, let's just take a look and see how they do. Starting on the bottom shelf. This is a way that you can really figure out how to display things, and you've got to really think about this. So here we have this beautiful old pattern on this quilt full of blues. You can see some old baskets. You can see one of these. I forgot the name of this bowl. I shouldn't have forgotten because I have a lot of these, but you can see the blue band on that bowl. This crock. And here we have a goose decoy. And old books in the back. Great set of American history books from the 1900s. I love to read those. And then we have some chair silhouettes. So what does anything on this shelf have to do with the one above it? Well, plenty. So on the second shelf, we have the red coverlet. We have the chairs repeated from the silhouettes. We have several old baskets. And we also have, in the corners, some little silhouettes in both corners. And then traveling up to the third shelf, we're picking up that blue color from that quilt again with salt glazed stoneware. This is American made. And on the very top shelf, you can see some decoys These are carved wooden decoys. And so really, everything in this cupboard is connected in one way or another, and very carefully put together. I could not do this video about English style without showing you this French tapestry. This French tapestry, which actually goes quite well with an English style. This is a 60-year-old weaving, but the originals were from the 15th century. There was a set of 6. They were called The Lady and the Unicorn, and they were rediscovered in a castle in France in 1841. And each one has a lady with a unicorn on one side and a lion on the other side, and each one represents one of the 5 senses. This one represents hearing, and the colors just couldn't be better for what I'm trying to pick up in this room. But it's just something, I mean, when I bought it, I thought, this is just really weird for me to buy this. Where am I going to put it? Turns out it looks great in this room, and it really is very cool. Sorry for the length of this video. It's just been so long since I made one. And in the last videos over the summer and the spring, I was able to do a bouquet. Every time we did a video, we had a bouquet. So this time we're going to do something different. A new flavor of tea with each video. And this is my very favorite winter tea. If you like really spicy, sweet, cinnamony and clovey tasting tea, this is Harney & Sons, the best cinnamon spice tea I've ever had. It's really strong. Of course, you got to add a little sweetener to it if that's what you like. And it is so delicious. And you can buy this at Harney & Sons online, or you can also get it on Amazon. And it is one of the best teas I've ever had. And when you open the can, it is so, so delightful. Great winter tea. So give that a try. And another thing I'd like to say is that for some of you, this may have been seemed like a really dark room. And that's because this is on a weird side of the house. It's on the north side of the house. It's got, I've been filming this video in the evening. So the room is dark anyway. It's dark outside. But we do have a room upstairs, which is much more bright and cheerful English style room, and we'll do that one some other time. So your room doesn't have to be as dark as this. Actually, I kind of like dark rooms, but I also like bright rooms. So until next time, thanks for putting up with me in this very, very long video. And this is Jerry, and we'll see you next time from Hopalong Hollow. Bye.